Most people believe they are saving enough for retirement. A 2023 Fidelity survey found that 61% of Americans feel confident about their financial future. But that same study found fewer than 1 in 4 could name an actual dollar figure for what enough means. That gap between confidence and clarity is exactly where retirements quietly collapse. But here is the thing. The next 90 days are not random. They are a decision window that most people do not even know they are standing inside. Today I am breaking down the exact numbers. Let us start with the number you have probably heard before. The average American household has saved around $87,000 for retirement. That figure comes from the Federal Reserve's 2022 Survey of Consumer Finances. On the surface, it sounds like progress. It sounds like most people are doing okay. But that number is the average, and averages lie in ways that matter enormously here. The median is a more honest figure. The median American household has saved just $65,000 for retirement. Now here is where the reality check lands. Among households headed by someone between 55 and 64 years old, people who are close enough to retirement to feel it, the median savings is $134,000. Fidelity recommends you have saved 10 times your annual salary by age 60. For someone earning $60,000 a year, that target is $600,000. The median 60-year-old has $134,000. That is a gap of nearly $500,000. And most people carrying that gap still feel like they are doing fine. If you are actively thinking about this right now, you are almost certainly ahead of that median. But being ahead of a struggling median is not the same as being on track. So what does it actually take to reach the top 10% of retirement savers in America? According to the Federal Reserve data, a household in the top 10% has a net worth of at least $1.9 million. That is total net worth, not retirement accounts alone. For individuals, the threshold is closer to $1.1 million in investable assets. Now here is where it gets interesting. A dual-income household, say a teacher and a project manager, both in their mid-50s, both contributing consistently to their retirement accounts for 25 years, can reach this level without ever having a glamorous career. A 7% annual return, compounded over 25 years on consistent contributions, turns ordinary incomes into top 10% outcomes. But here is the paradox that almost nobody talks about. People sitting at $1.9 million in net worth rarely feel wealthy. They look at the roof that needs replacing. They look at their children's tuition. They look at healthcare costs in their 60s. The Employee Benefit Research Institute estimates healthcare costs alone at roughly $413,000 over a 20-year retirement for a couple. The number says top 10%. The feeling says average. But does reaching this level actually mean you are financially secure? That is a different question entirely. Moving up one level, the top 5% of American households by net worth crosses a threshold of approximately $3.2 million. That figure comes from the same Federal Reserve survey. At the individual level, you are looking at investable assets of around $1.9 million or more. Who actually lives here? Typically, senior physicians at large hospital systems. Not residents. Experienced attendings, a decade or more into practice. Partners at law firms or accounting firms in mid-sized cities. Small business owners who built and held rather than sold early. Engineers who joined large technology companies between 2010 and 2018 and held their equity. Here is the demographic detail that tends to surprise people. A 2023 report from the Urban Institute found that a disproportionate share of the top 5% by net worth are between 65 and 75 years old. Not 45, not 50, 65 to 75. That tells you something important. Wealth at this level is almost never earned quickly. It is accumulated slowly, and then it accelerates in the final decade before retirement, as debts are paid off and portfolios compound without interruption. But is income alone what drives this? The honest answer is no. Income is the on-ramp. What you do once you are on the highway determines everything else. Now the top 1%. The income threshold to reach the top 1% of earners in the United States is approximately $788,000 per year. That figure comes from IRS Statistics of Income, data from 2021, the most recent year with complete data available. And that number has moved significantly. In 2017, the threshold was closer to $515,000 per year. In just 5 years, the bar moved by more than $270,000. That is not inflation alone. That is a widening gap at the very top. Who earns this? You are typically looking at dual-career households where both partners are in high-demand specialties. A cardiothoracic surgeon and a corporate attorney. 2 partners at competing financial firms. A founder still in the operating seat of a growing company. But here is something worth sitting with for a moment. Even at $788,000 per year, these people are still exchanging time for money. They stop working, and the income stops. The wealth they have built exists only to the degree they have converted earned income into something that generates returns without them. And many have not done that. Federal Reserve data shows that top earners often have surprisingly low savings rates relative to their income, because lifestyle expands in direct proportion to the paycheck. The income picture is now complete, but it is not the full picture, not even close. Here is where this conversation needs to shift, because everything covered so far has been about income, how much people earn. And income is seductive because it is visible. It is on your pay stub. It is what people ask about at dinners. But income does not retire you. What retires you is what you own. And those are 2 entirely different conversations. The part most people miss completely is the distinction between what you earn and what you have quietly accumulated over decades. The next few minutes are about that second number, and it is the one that will actually determine whether your retirement is what you imagined or something considerably smaller. The average American household net worth, across all ages, is approximately $1.06 million. That figure is from the Federal Reserve's 2022 data, but that average is being pulled sharply upward by a small number of extremely wealthy households. The median tells the real story. The median American household net worth is around $192,000, nearly 6 times lower than the average. And of that median net worth, a significant portion is not liquid. The National Association of Realtors estimates that for homeowners, roughly 70% of net worth is tied up in home equity. That is money you cannot spend without selling your home or borrowing against it. When you strip away illiquid assets, the true liquid investable wealth of the median American household is closer to $58,000. That number needs to generate income, cover emergencies, and potentially fund 20 to 30 years of retirement. The math is uncomfortable. Now look at the progression by age, because this is where something important reveals itself. Households under 35 have a median net worth of approximately $39,000. Households between 45 and 54 reach around $168,000. By 55 to 64, the median climbs to $212,000. And for households between 65 and 74, it reaches $410,000. That acceleration in the final decade before retirement is not accidental. It is the product of mortgages being paid off, children becoming financially independent, and portfolios compounding without new debt being added. Wealth is almost never a single event. It is a slow accumulation that accelerates near the end. Think about a retired teacher who spent 30 years in a public school system. She never earned more than $72,000 in a single year. She has a pension paying $38,000 annually, a modest retirement account with $210,000 in it, and a home she owns outright. Her total net worth sits just under $500,000. She is in the top third of all Americans by net worth. Now compare her to a 38-year-old technology worker earning $210,000 a year. He is carrying $380,000 in student loan debt, a mortgage on a house purchased near the peak of the market, and a car lease. His income puts him in the top 5% of earners. His net worth is technically negative. Income and wealth are not the same thing, and the decisions you make in the next 90 days about which assets you are actually building will compound for decades. Now zoom out further than most people ever do, because this next number genuinely changes how you see your own position. The Credit Suisse Global Wealth Report tracks wealth distribution across more than 200 countries every year. As of their most recent data, the median wealth per adult globally is approximately $8,654. To be in the top 10% of wealth globally, you need a net worth of just over $100,000. To be in the top 1% of all adults on this planet, the threshold is approximately $1.1 million. Here is what that means in practical terms. If you have a retirement account with $100,000 in it and a home with any equity at all, you are wealthier than 9 out of 10 adults alive on this planet right now. That is not a motivational phrase. That is a mathematical fact from the Credit Suisse dataset. More than half the world's adult population has a net worth below $8,600. The comparison you are running in your head against your neighbor, your colleague, the person you see online, is running inside one of the wealthiest 15 to 20% of countries on Earth. The reference frame is distorted by design, and that distortion is exactly why the data rarely matches the feeling. There is a well-documented psychological mechanism called relative deprivation. It was formalized in research by economists Urzo Lutmer and Andrew Clark, among others. The core finding is straightforward. Your sense of financial well-being is determined far less by your absolute wealth, and far more by how your wealth compares to the people immediately around you. Not globally, not nationally. The people in your neighborhood, your industry, your social circle. If everyone on your street drives a 3-year-old sedan, a 5-year-old sedan feels completely fine. If half your street suddenly has a new SUV, your 5-year-old sedan starts to feel like a problem, even though nothing about your actual financial position changed. This is not a character flaw. It is wired into how human beings assess status and safety. Your brain evolved in small groups where relative standing directly affected survival. It did not evolve to compare itself against global wealth distributions. The person whose neighbor just bought a holiday home feels genuinely poorer this month, even if their own retirement account gained 4%. The feeling is real. The financial conclusion it leads to is usually wrong. So here is what all of this means for the next 90 days. The loop that opened at the beginning of this video was this. Most people feel like they are not saving enough, while also believing they are doing okay. Both feelings are running at the same time, and both are responses to the wrong reference point. The income thresholds matter, but they are a starting point, not a destination. The net worth picture matters more, because it is the only number that can actually fund a retirement. And the global context matters, because it recalibrates the anxiety that causes people to either overspend today trying to feel wealthy, or freeze entirely because the gap feels too large to close. Here is the one thing worth doing this week. Not a list, just one thing. Calculate your actual liquid net worth, not the gross figure, not the number that includes your home equity and pension estimates. Your liquid, investable number. Write it down. Then compare it against the Federal Reserve's wealth progression by age bracket. That single act of clarity does more for retirement outcomes than any investment strategy, because you cannot optimize what you have not measured. The account balances, the market decisions, the allocation questions, all of that comes second. Knowing exactly where you stand comes first. So here is the question this leaves open. If the data says you are likely in a stronger position than you feel, and the psychology explains why you feel worse than the numbers suggest, what would it actually take for you to feel financially secure? And is that a feeling that any number can ever truly deliver?